To know Crystal was to love her.
Crystal McCrory was the bright centerpiece of a loving family.
She was the best aunt, the best sister, the best mom, and the best daughter. She was just a phenomenal person.
But 2 years ago, something dark happened to the beloved wife, sister, and mother, who was found dead with a pillow over her face and a gunshot wound to the head. Dane McCrory will never forget the phone call from his sister's husband, Tony Joe Jones.
You know, I'm thinking, okay, Crystal's probably left him or something. But the phone call that I got was, your sister's been found dead.
Dane called me and asked me if I was sitting down.
Dane's younger sister, Jana, couldn't believe the tragic news.
He didn't know the details of it, and I just stood there and asked Dane, what do I do? What do we do?
Jana heads to Crystal's house. She waits outside next to the coroner and Crystal's husband, Tony, a one-time employee of the West Carroll Parish Sheriff's Department. She speaks by phone with Dane.
I told Dane I'm not leaving until she comes out. That's when the coroner walked up to Tony, and he kind of whispered, we still have to send her body off for an autopsy. I just thought to myself, why are you saying still? Was there another conversation held about not sending her body off for an autopsy?
Jana says she immediately felt something was off. Her suspicion grew when, within hours, the local coroner labels Crystal's manner of death a suicide. Though the family admits Crystal had faced depression and once even attempted suicide, they now say she was overjoyed at becoming a grandmother for the first time. They aren't convinced she took her life, and she didn't even leave a note.
Crystal wrote notes for everything. If she was mad at you, you got a note or Facebook message. If she was happy with you, you got a note. She wrote notes to remind herself about notes, and there was no note.
Ever since, her brother and sister believe there's more to Crystal's death than they've been told.
Okay, so we have 2 autopsy reports here.
And they've collected a mountain of their own evidence they say proves it.
The evidence that we have uncovered points a completely different direction. It points to a staged suicide scene. It points to everything but what they say it is. And the fact that we were lied to from minute 1 of this investigation.
This timeline is like 278 pages. It's going to start on February the 9th, 2023, and it goes up until this day.
They believe problems were evident from day one. Their biggest suspicion, Tony's interview with the Sheriff's Department, which lasted a total of 7 minutes.
I'll be taking a statement this afternoon from Tony Jones in reference to a self-inflicted gunshot wound of his wife, Miss Crystal McCrory Jones.
Immediately, within the 7 minutes that was in the interview, he ruled it self-inflicted.
I went into town, I put a check in the bank, I turned around, and then I went to eat at Bakery Barn. I left there and went to Forest High School, and I was there till just shy of 3 o'clock.
Tony tells his former colleague, Chief Deputy Alan Irby, he was in a class full of karate students that afternoon. The family claims those students were never interviewed, and they say Tony's phone records were never checked.
If you're making tiny mistakes, what kind of big mistakes are you making?
Lindsay Smith is a private investigator who worked with Crystal's family.
They just took Tony's word for it because he was their friend, and we're dealing with a small town police department, and I don't think that they are well equipped for a homicide investigation, a suicide investigation.
Because the coroner ruled the death a suicide, Tony was not a suspect and has never faced any charges. He told investigators Crystal battled depression and had a doctor's appointment that afternoon. When he learned she never checked in, he says he panicked.
So I called Deputy Harris, he was my neighbor, and he said he was almost home, that he would go check. He went inside, was calling her name. I said the bedroom's in the very back of the house, and her name's Crystal.
How does Tony Jones know she's in the bedroom? Just one of the many things that would have raised red flags to someone just straight out of police academy.
Were you still on the phone?
I was still on the phone with him, and he opened the door and he said, "Crystal, Crystal," and then he, at that point, he said, "Tony, I'm sorry to tell you that she is deceased."
He had ample opportunity to go check on her himself. But does he do it? No.
One day after the interview, Dane called Chief Deputy Irby asking if there were any signs of forced entry or foul play.
His answer to me was, look, I've known Tony Jones and his family for 20 years. Tony's not the kind of person that could be involved in something like this. Immediate red flag.
This was a botched investigation from the very beginning. Like, nobody gave Jana the time or courtesy to explain to her how they got to the suicide ruling, and there was just no proper investigation done, period.
And there could be more suspicious pieces that don't add up. From a toxicology report they say can't possibly be right, to the position of the gun in Crystal's own hand. When it comes to Crystal McCrory's death, her siblings have endless questions and zero answers. From what they believe was the possible number of shots fired,
There it is. As plain as day, 2 bullet holes in the headboard. People who shoot themselves in the head do not shoot themselves in the head twice.
to the unusual way Crystal's hand stayed perfectly positioned on the gun, her finger still firmly on the trigger, even after the weapon would have fired. And a shell casing isn't found in the bedroom until a week later on her dresser, discovered by Crystal's husband, Tony. Original investigative photos don't appear to show a casing in that location. The sheriff says it was always there, they just missed gathering it.
It would have been physically impossible for a shell casing to eject that far and land on this table. But they tried to claim that what they say is a shell casing in the, in the crime scene photo, the only thing on this table that even remotely looks like a shell casing is a makeup brush. There's not a shell casing in this photo. They're saying that's a glare of a shell casing.
But Crystal's laptop set off more suspicions. Jana discovered the couple was having money troubles, and she says Tony was immediately on multiple dating sites.
He had Google searched when is an appropriate time to date after the death of a spouse. And that was 4 days after she had passed away.
And the 3-page toxicology report created further questions for the family.
We found out that she had 250 milligrams of diphenhydramine, which is over-the-counter Benadryl, in her system. That's enough to sedate a 1,000-pound horse. So they wanted us to believe that she had enough sedatives in her system to sedate a large animal, but was still able to operate a firearm and kill herself? No, we don't buy it. We don't believe it. We never will.
There's more. They say Crystal's thighs and hands were bruised, and shockingly, her hands were not bagged at the scene or tested for gunshot residue. Dane says the sheriff's office assured him both would be done.
He said, yes, that's standard procedure in any firearm-involved crime. According to the pathologist, that would have to have been requested by the sheriff's office. No such request was made.
And multiple investigative reports were riddled with errors, they say.
You could start with the spelling of her name, her hair color. He didn't express any concerns about the bruising that we saw, her eye color.
Even the time of death changed multiple times, finally recorded as 11 a.m. When Janet questioned the changes, the sheriff told her,
I don't know what you're trying to pull, lady, but that's absolutely false.
When she had more questions for the pathologist and requested more documents,
He shut me down and said that if you have any more questions, you need to contact the West Carroll Parish Sheriff's Office.
All of these little things collectively deserve a second chance.
True Crime News reached out to Crystal's husband, Tony Jones, but did not hear back. Her family believes another agency should have investigated since Tony had worked for the sheriff, a possible conflict of interest. In a statement to True Crime News, Sheriff Scott Matthews had this to say about Jana. I pray that this young lady gets the closure that she's seeking, and I pray for all of the family. But making that harder, Tony had their sister cremated, against the family's wishes.
We practically begged for her not to be cremated. He said, it's my decision. I can legally do what I want. We have no place to go to see my sister. He took her remains. We have nothing. We have absolutely nothing. Because of him, he has taken every trace of her away from us.
Now the family still wants another agency to step in, and though it won't bring back Crystal, it might bring her justice.
There's not a day goes by that I don't think about her. I have 2 daughters, and one is the spitting image of her personality, and the other is the spitting image of her looks. I mean, they remind me daily.